Greetings, everyone. I am Jesse, the museum technician here at the Mountain Gateway Museum, and today, in honor of International Archaeology Day, we are going to do a little bit of sand art stratigraphy. Now, stratigraphy is, in archaeological terms, simply the buildup of soil over time. Different layers correspond to different time periods, and in general, the deeper down that you dig, the further back in time that we're going. So we are going to take that concept and combine it with sand art, kind of dumping different colored sand into a clear container to make something that is both educational and fun. We're going to get our steam on today, basically. So first, you will need a vessel, some type of clear container. I have a tiny little test tube that we bought, but you can take a mason jar, a pickle jar, a Coke bottle, anything that you happen to have that you like, that is sealable. You just have to make sure that you have enough sand to be able to fill it. And then we have our colored sands. These are in nice little bottles with these fun dispensers, but a bowl with a spoon to dump it into will be fine just as well. So with that, we're going to get started. And the first step that'll be at the bottom of our stratigraphy example is going to be this lovely gray color, because each color that I have here has been assigned a meaning, a purpose. The gray is going to be our sterile soil, which means no human activity. This is what happens when you don't test things out before you shoot. So we're going to put in our base layer of gray, sterile soil, which means there has been no human activity. And from there, we're going to get into the earliest people that are arriving in North America, in North Carolina, and this is the Paleo-Indian period. We're going to use yellow for that. So roughly kind of 13,000 BC up through 8,000 BC, though there is new research that pushes that first date back, but that's a whole other presentation. So this is basically people are hunting megafauna, our woolly mammoths, our giant sloths, my personal favorite, the short-faced bear, but you have family-based so we're going to add groups that a little bit of a river flood game herd. We're going to keep that one handy, and then we transition to the Archaic Period. Now people are starting to settle down just a little bit, still nomadic, still moving in their groups, but they are moving in a seasonal pattern. The larger game animals, the megafauna, are dying off. So when we are shifting to smaller game that we are going to be a bit more familiar with, deer, turkey and such, and that's going to be our red. Now with this comes the adoption of horticulture and the beginnings of domesticated agriculture and the maintenance of the landscape by fire. Sometimes the fire is intentional, sometimes the fire is not. Have our fire. It's going to leave a layer of charcoal in our stratigraphy, and then maybe the people come back to that site, so we add a little bit more red to add the camp, and then maybe nothing happens for a few hundred years, so we just have some normal soil build up over time, with not much human activity. That's going to be our yellow here. And I do want to say that the thickness of these layers is not to scale of time. It's just me going, that looks like a good amount of sand. And then our next time period is the Woodland time period. Now this is when we start to see permanent settlement, permanent villages, and the large-scale adoption of agriculture. And eventually this would be corn. And then beans and squash. So we're going to have our Woodland Period, as I throw sand everywhere. Maybe another flood by our site. And then some fire being used to maintain those fields and clear the weeds from it to help keep the forest at bay. And then, of course, our evidence of agriculture itself. A little bit of green, little bit of green. And we have our evidence of agriculture. And then, as the use of agriculture intensifies, populations grow, we start to get into our next time period, which is going to be the Mississippian time period, one of my favorite because of my time spent at Town Creek Indian Mound State Historic Site. But here we see intensive agriculture, a stratification of the population, and construction of large earthen mounds, very much like the one at Town Creek Indian Mound in Mount Gilead. You should check them out. It's really cool. But the Mississippian period in North Carolina is a little bit fuzzy, and in some areas, after those people moved, it went back to a woodland culture. So we actually kind of slide backwards a little bit, so to speak, in our time scale. And then when we get to about the mid 1500s or so, we get into the historical period, and we have groups of Europeans like the Spanish in the mid 1500s, followed by the English and the Dutch and the French a little bit later on. And then they start to show up, and that's going to be our tan sand here. So this is we're going to say this is about 1540 to maybe 1690, 1700. That kind of early colonization period. And then we're going to move into what we're going to call the middle colonial period, roughly 1700 to, we'll give it a date of about 1815 or so, early republic here in the United States. That's going to be our layer there. And then we're going to do the modern period. We're just going to say 19th century up to today. And that's going to be the white sand once I cut the tip off the bottle. Always stage your stuff out before you actually start the educational video. And then on the very, very top, because I run out of color, so we're going to go back to our gray. You would get the plow layer, which is the topsoil that is turned and disturbed by modern agriculture, by people just building and walking. That kind of top layer that at the start of any dig is the first thing that you just kind of scrape away. And then we cure it, and we have a lovely piece of sand art that also tells a fun archaeological story. I hope thank you all very much, and happy International Archaeology Day.